Let's talk about productivity. Flutter makes us very productive. The development cycle is very fast, faster than native development. Once we will practice coding in Flutter and learn its fundamentals, it becomes really fast to develop an app in Flutter, compared in developing with its competitors or native apps. Flutter introduces a revolutionary ability for developers and designers to iterate over their apps in real time. The so-called stateful hot reload feature allows you to change the code of your app and see the changes in real time in an emulator or your connected device without having to restart the app or go back to the screen where you are on. Hot reload transforms the way you build an app by making you more productive and allowing you to focus on new features. Flutter is written in Dart, and in order to develop in Flutter, we need to learn just one language. Dart is a language that has existed since 2011, was created by Google to develop web applications. And now it's a client-optimized, general purpose, object-oriented programming language. It has a good compiler, a mature compiler in JavaScript, and it has the ability to be compiled just in time or ahead of time compilation. Making it clear why Flutter better suits Flutter, why Dart better suits Flutter. It takes credit at least for the stateful hot reload, the syntax simplicity, along declarative way to write code, and to native compilation feature. Flutter is not the only framework for developing cross-platform applications. To list some of the competitors, we have like React Native, Ionic, NativeScript, and so on. So why Flutter is unique? Looking closer from a mobile app perspective, the finished application code, it is actually a native code with ability to control every pixel on the device. The pictures show an overview structure diagram behind a cross-platform mobile app. The top picture shows how Flutter competitors like React Native is structured, while at the bottom, we have how actually a Flutter app is structured. Your Flutter application is deployed with the rendering engine, and this is why your app can control every pixel in your device. And it does not use the native UI components. Instead, it uses the rendering engine shipped along the app to draw pixel by pixel your user interface. The code is compiled into native code, and it runs as native performance without the need of virtual machine or other interpreters, like the Flutter competitors do. So far we have seen the interface, and we barely touched how it's structured, a Flutter application behind the hood. When it comes to interacting, as we talked about the UI perspective of an app, but when it comes to interacting with low-level services for a device, we need plugins or packages. And Flutter offers this package library, pub.dev, where we can browse the packages available and the different plugins available. For example, a plugin to use the device's camera, or a plugin to use the audio support, and so on. So we go to pub.dev, where we have the list of plugins and use them in our application. So I guess more or less we just touched the why Flutter is awesome in general, and why it's a bit different from the current competitors that we have in terms of developing cross-platform applications, meaning applications that can be coded in one single code and used to be compiled or interpreted in different applications, native applications. So where to start from? And to really getting started developing Flutter apps, the very first step is to set up the environment on your machine. I won't go through this. To do that, you can go to flutter.dev, where you can see the steps needed to install it on your machine. Of course, we need editor when it comes to developing any application. Flutter supports different editors. You can choose the one that suits you, and use plugins and assist you while you are developing your Flutter application. If it is not that case, actually you can avoid the installation setup and start right away on dartpad.dev developing in Flutter. Dartpad.dev is an online compiler in which you can start writing in Dart or either Flutter and see your application or the result of your code right away online. Another online tool that supports Flutter is CodePen. There are different templates and samples already there. You can choose the samples and play around and see how the things needed to develop in Flutter right away online. Let's see a very simple app, how it's structured. If we have all the steps in our machine and we create a Flutter app, by default, it will be created this counter application, in which every time we click the button, it counts how many times it is clicked. Every time we start a new Flutter project, there is a single line of code that most of the times we don't need to change. And that is the main function, which is the entry point telling Dart where it should start running our code. In Flutter, we have two kinds of widgets. I said everything is a widget in Flutter, and there are two kinds of widgets, stateful or stateless. Default examples of stateless widgets are images, icon, text, containers, and so on. And default examples of stateful widgets are widgets like for animation, checkbox, or input fields. Stateless widgets simply doesn't change the state, so they take input data, but they cannot change that input data, and they simply get re-rendered every time. This is an example of the same counter application that you get when you start with the Flutter app, developing on Flutter app. On the other hand, stateful widgets have input data, but the main difference is they have data inside them. And every time this data is changed, so they have this internal state. When it gets updated, they just simply get re-rendered. And this is simply an example of how. Don't worry, I will share the slides later so you can check the code step by step and also the links. And to update the state, we just use a method, and every time we update this internal state inside a stateful widget, simply our widget gets re-rendered. This is a matching of the code and what is displayed in the application. So brief recap. To summarize, Flutter has a unique architecture compared to the currently available cross-platform development technologies. Flutter is fast in terms of high development velocity and also in terms of permitting us to have animations that are smooth and junk-free. And it has already a rich catalog of widgets that we just have to take and use it in our application. The roadmap of Flutter is running the same code base on every screen and every platform. So the idea behind it is you develop using this Dart language, then you compile it, and from the same code base, you have different applications that run in iOS, in Android, and desktop applications in Linux, macOS, Windows, and also web that can run everywhere. So to really get started with Flutter, one of the first things is to go through the documentation. And based on your experience, if you have experience in other programming languages or in other technologies, you can go through this link. You'll see how Flutter is similar to, let's say, Android development, iOS, React Native, Xamarin, and other technologies. Newbie, you can start by learning and watching videos, doing available code labs, reading documentation, blogs, seeing examples, and obviously by practicing. We need Dart as a language. And to get familiar with Dart, we can start with the dartpad.dev, and which is the compiler online. Start playing with it and see the result of our application right away. Official website is flutter.dev. There you have a lot of resources, the documentation, and also links to social communities and to Medium or blogs or videos. Here are the list of some links. I'll share the slides later. You can click and reach the links if you want to play around. And some video sources also. And one other thing that is great about Flutter, Flutter is open source. And it's supported by online community. And there's a really great community behind it, willing to help you in your journey of learning. To see the communities, you can check on flutter.dev/community and join the different communities available. So thank you. This is about Flutter. If you have any questions regarding Flutter, please feel free to ask me.
Okay, thank you very much, Rihanna. So in case you have any question, please ask her now. We have just 1 minute to go.
Oh.
Yes. So in case you have any question as regards that, you can ask her now, or you follow her on any of our social media platform. Yeah, so these are Twitter handles, so you can follow her just to know more updates about Flutter and so many other things. So do you have anybody with questions? Okay, so the absence of no question, I think we have to move on. Thank you so much for coming. So we used to be around for people to ask, maybe join us for the event a little bit in case people have more questions. Or okay.
Sure. Okay. You can reach me at this handle in Twitter if you have any questions, doubts, or even if you want me to give you another overview without no problem, and I'll stay around for any other questions.
Okay, thank you so very much. So we can join the main section now to continue with this program. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, right.
Bye.